Hello and welcome to the Kick in the Creatives podcast, hosted by myself, Sandra Busby, and my fellow creative Tara Roskell, offering you interviews, inspiration, motivation, and a gentle prod in the right direction. And for lots more information, challenges, and other useful tools to help you get creating, you can go to www.kickinthecreatives.com. And of course, this is where you can also find today's show notes. Enjoy the show.
I think we've mentioned Jon Burgerman in nearly every joint podcast episode we've done so far. But if you haven't heard of him, you should definitely check out some of his work. Jon was born in the UK but moved to New York City in 2010. His art has almost a sort of doodle-like quality about it. What I like about his work is it seems to be very much about play and experimentation. Jon's work exists in many forms, including canvases, murals, sculpture, toys, apparel, design, print, and even tattoos. Running out of breath there. He also does some really funny animation and video projects, which you'll hear more about in the show. As well as writing, illustrating books, teaching on Skillshare and its other projects, Jon has also collaborated with some very high-profile brands, including CocaCola, Samsung, Nintendo, Nike, and Sony. We really enjoyed chatting to Jon, and no doubt you'll enjoy listening. So let's get started. Thanks so much for joining us, Jon.
Oh, you're welcome.
Wondered if you've always been interested in art from a young age, and what sort of art did you create?
I think all children like making art and stuff. Everyone likes drawing crayons and paints and stuff when you're younger. I can't really remember what I made. It's, splodges and goofy things. Probably not dissimilar to what I make now.
Well, I was just about to add to that. You sort of just did splodges, and I think as adults we suddenly take it a lot more seriously, don't we? Think, oh, this has got to look like something. So maybe you just, that child in you just stuck. But did you, how did you go about actually learning your craft now? Did you go to art school, any kind of art school?
Yeah, I studied art at school. I did art GCSE. I did art A-level. I went to Art Foundation in Bourneville in Birmingham, and then I studied fine art at Nottingham Trent in Nottingham. So studied art quite a lot, I guess, at school and university. That was always my passion.
So what did you think to sort of foundation?
I think a common feeling about foundation amongst my peers is that it's one of the best years of your life. It was really great for me. At school, you only get to try a certain amount of media and stuff within sort of arts learning, and then on foundation, it's so much broader. I've got to experiment with ceramics and fabrics and woodworking and printmaking, and I had access to a lot more different sort of techniques than I would have done at school for A-level. And also you're doing art all day long, which was amazing, rather than doing it for a few hours at a time, maybe during a week. It was, art 5 days a week. So for me, I was in heaven. That was really wonderful.
You are a really creative man, and your style is certainly not like a realism style, is it? It's completely the other end of the scale, and I'm just wondering how you got on with the whole fine art part of the course. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I had a really great time in Nottingham. There were obviously some tutors really took to what I was doing, and some less so. But I never found it a big problem. On my first ever tutorial with in the first year, my tutor told me not to worry, and he said I'd make lots of money and have many lovers. That's what he told me. Sadly, neither of those things particularly come true. But I think what was good about the course on Nottingham is it was quite broad-minded anyway, and it wasn't, we were in the post Damien Hirst, British art era of postmodernism and sensation and all that kind of stuff. So it was a lot of it was kind of a broad church. I think you could get away with a lot of different things and call it art. So what I was doing probably was a little traditional anyway, in the grand scheme of things. Not hugely conceptual. So I didn't have any sort of big issues. I do get a lot of emails from students saying, "Oh, I'm on this art course and I make work a bit like you, and the tutors don't like it. What on earth should I do?" And I think you should just keep doing what you're doing. Everyone's welcome to their opinion, and you can't please everyone, and you shouldn't be making work to necessarily please anyone other than yourself. And when you leave university, you're only going to come up against other criticism and comments and things, from every angle, from everywhere, that anyone that sees your work. So if your tutors are giving you some pushback on what you're making, that's just good practice. How you're going to deal with it, how you're going to defend yourself, to how it might be in the real world.
So how did you develop your doodle style?
I don't know. It's just naturally how I draw. I didn't sit down and decide I want to draw like this or I want to draw like that. It's just how I draw. And I often say, how I draw is akin to how I speak or how I think or how I write. This is connected in a way that it's just an extension of my, personality, I guess. And yeah, it naturally evolved, I think.
So were you doodling or doing that same doodle style when you were at school?
It was definitely relatable. I've had some friends uncover some like drawings and doodles from their school days and have sent me scans. Oh, do you remember this, John? You used to, draw this while we should have been learning French. And I look at those drawings and they're similar, googly-eyed characters and sort of noodly bodies and stuff. It's not exactly the same, but it's definitely you can see the evolution. And again, that's another common question I get. Oh, how do I find my style? How do I get a style? And I don't think you can sit and design it. I mean, you could, but then I think it's a bit weird and it's a bit forced. Yeah, it's a bit forced. You just got to keep working. Just put many hours into it and follow your nose. Create stuff that you like, that you get a kick out of, and then sometimes you make something and you're like, oh, that's a little different to what I did before. What is it I like about it? How can I focus on that bit? And the more you do that, and the more you refine what you're doing, then you develop. And then that's how you start to have a distinctive voice. Or you could just copy someone. I mean, that happens a lot.
Yeah, I'm never sure that's a good idea though.
No, being facetious.
It's sort of like plucking a style off the shelf. I think there's a lot of people that actually do that, and I've always said, a style I think comes naturally over time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a personification of you and how you are.
Yeah.
So you don't want to fake that, because then you're not being yourself, and then ultimately that never ends well, does it? When we're holding a pretense and pretending. So and you don't need to do that. Everyone's got something interesting about them. Everyone's got a point of view. Doesn't always mean it's a loud point of view or a bold. It could be subtle. It could be delicate, but it's interesting because it's you, and you just need to help bring that to the surface.
Your work isn't confined to paper, is it? Certainly, when I was watching your video the other day, Tara sent me a video. Tara, you have to put a link to that at the end of the show notes. I was wondering what kind of things inspire your creativity, because you don't just draw, you'll find creative things to do even when you're sitting on a train or you're out and about, just on the street. What happens? Do you just sort of see something and think, oh, I could make something out of that? Does it just come naturally all the time?
Yeah, no, I think it comes and goes in waves. It's a combination of a few scenarios all at once, of being a bit bored, feeling a bit mischievous, seeing the opportunity, having a material to hand, whether it's pen and paper or your phone or a drawing app or whatever it might be, scrap of paper. When all these things come together and you see that you have that little spark, then you make something. But sometimes I'm sat on a train, I'm just a bit tired, or I'm just going to read my book, and I don't have that urge. And I think over the years I recognise that sometimes I go through a period of doing that kind of stuff for a few months, and then it kind of lessens, and I kind of forget about it, and then I realise I haven't done something like that for a while, and then I want to do it again. So I think it comes and goes in waves, and no one can be full on creative 100% all the time. That's probably not normal. We need time for our sort of creativity, like a muscle. It needs to relax and then replenish, and then it can sort of be used again. So yeah, it depends, but I think there's always something, like you see something, and that gives you a spark, and then you go, should I exploit that? Should I take advantage of it? I sometimes see lots of things that I would want to draw or take a picture of, but it's not the right time. I don't have the opportunity to do it, and you just sort of let it go. So yeah, it's got to be the perfect storm, I'd say.
You mentioned that you're quite mischievous. Were you the naughty child at school?
No, I wouldn't say I was the naughtiest, but I definitely got in trouble a bunch for drawing and doodling and not paying attention. So never sort of malicious naughtiness, just being just a bit cheeky sometimes.
I often think of children when they're always, spending time outside the classroom, although the naughty ones. I always think, I bet they're creative and they just don't know it, or their parents don't know it. They just need to.
It's possible, yeah. I think there's an energy. To be creative, you've got to have a bit of an energy, a bit of a spark. And I think, yeah, you're right. Maybe sometimes that can be a bit misdirected.
Do you always carry a camera around with you then? Because when I was watching your video, I just wondered if you must have one ready for action at any given moment, or is it just your iPhone or your phone?
It's just my phone, yeah. It's just my phone. But that's a camera. That's like we inadvertently, everyone now, well, almost everyone's got a smartphone of some description. So everyone's got access to camera, video camera, drawing, the internet, making notes. Like, it's all in our hand, like pretty much all the time. So rather than playing, some game on there or something, you could be making stuff. I think that's really amazing.
What's your process for creating art? So you have this like spark of an idea. Do you just straight go for it, or do you do a lot of planning and working out what the end vision's going to be like?
It really depends on what the art is. I think for the stuff with my phone, when I'm out and about, there's no planning. It's very quick and spontaneous. You see something, quickly take a picture of it. Sometimes take a picture of something or a video of something and not really know why. It's just got a feeling like, oh, this could be interesting. And then return to it a day or two later, and then you're like, oh, why on earth did I video this? And be a bit confused, and sometimes not. And sometimes, feel you can make something with it. With drawing and painting, again, it kind of depends what it's for. A lot of my large-scale paintings are completely improvised. So, again, I have a sort of feeling about what it might look like, or what the painting might feel like, and then just try and get, translate that, put that on the canvas or on the page. Very, very, very rarely do I sketch something out and then try and fulfill the sketch. I only really do that if it's for a client or something and they insist on having a guide before they commission the work or something like that, where they're a bit nervous about what I might make, which in turn makes me a little bit nervous about what I might make. But ideally, just go for it. I always say to people, if you don't like it, we can just paint it white again. It's not the end of the world.
When you're kind of working on this piece of art, are you thinking about the commercial potential, or are you just doing it for you because you love it? Unless it's a specific commission, I mean.
No, yeah, never think of the there's too much to hold in your head at any one time. I'm just thinking like, I've got an idea to make something, or, oh, I've got these new paints. I wonder how that, I wonder what it would be like using them, or these new pens, or just got an urge to draw a large picture. Let's see what happens. I think that's as far as I can worry about with that. And then sometimes you return to work that you've made many months ago, and then you can see, oh, I could use that in another way, or, oh, that character's kind of cool. Maybe I should redraw that character, and it could become a t-shirt design or a sticker or something. The main goal is just to create and put something down. All those other things, I think, come afterwards. And again, it's not that it's wrong to be thinking of that while you're making, but for me, it gets in the way.
So I'm guessing you weren't always intending then to make a living from your art, and I suppose it must have happened by accident then, because that's what you do now, isn't it, for a living?
It is, yeah, it is what I do. I'm very lucky and very happy that that's the case. I wouldn't say, you've got to be a bit savvy about it, and you've got to understand what it is you're making, and if you do want to make a living from it, you've got to think, well, it's easier to maybe sell an A4 drawing than it is an A0 drawing, because people might not have room for it or something. But I wouldn't say it happened by accident. I studied art throughout my youth, so I obviously hoped for some sort of career in art making. I didn't know exactly what that would be. I would say the commercial stuff is what was accidental. If you could have asked me, when I was 19, what I would do, I would say I'd be a painter, and I would have exhibitions and make paintings and sell them. That would be the dream. And I think the commercial stuff I had no idea about. It wasn't until people saw my work and asked me, hey, can you paint a picture for our band, or can you do this for this advert or something, that I realized you could make money commercially through art, and it's called illustration. I had no idea about that until after I left university.
So you've done some really fun creative projects, such as drawing bodies on people on the subway. Can you share some of those projects that you've really enjoyed?
Well, that one is a really simple one. It started when I was in Seoul in South Korea, and again, like I mentioned earlier, being a bit bored on the subway, having a pen and paper to hand, and having maybe a little bit of a cheeky spark of an idea. And I thought if I drew the bottom half of a body without a head, I could hold up the piece of paper and sort of take a photo, and it would look like the person sat opposite me had a new body. A bit like one of those seaside, what are they called?
With your head sticking through.
Yeah, a little seaside photo op thing. So it was just a fun little activity to keep me entertained. You weren't sure whether the person opposite was going to get up and leave, or get up and smack you around the chops, or whatever. So, and it was bumpy on the subway, and so it had all these other little challenges, little sort of making it into a game, if you would, so you could. It had random elements, sort of that way of thinking, that way of making work was relatively new to me. I had not made stuff like that before, and it opened up other ideas. So following that, I saw some movie posters where the actors were holding weapons, like they do for advertising movies. And because I'd done this game on the subway, was sort of playing with perspective, I thought, I could do a similar thing with this movie poster. I could just sort of stand in front of it and be photographed from a certain angle, and it would look like the actor holding the weapon was sort of holding it against my head or against my body. It was a bit grim and not as fun and playful as my other work, but the origins were the same. It's just like, I love drawing and I love painting, but maybe I can make work using the environment around me without even doing anything. Maybe I can use my body as a prop. Maybe I can use perspective as an element within, my creative work. And I really sort of got tickled by the idea of making stuff without actually making anything. By just photographing things from a certain angle, you change the meaning of something, or how you read an image. And I was really really excited by that. So that started a project where I collected all these pictures of me getting shot by movie posters, and that became a project on its own that was called Headshots, and I put online, and it got a lot of press, and it kind of went viral, and it got a lot of debate as well. People saying, why are there graphic, violent images in public spaces? Why are we surrounding ourselves in our cities with celebrities or movie stars holding weapons, especially in certain cities that have problems with like gun crime and knife crime? Why are we sort of glorifying these things? So from something kind of goofy and silly became a project that was a little bit more weighty, and that was kind of fascinating. It was really interesting to do. On the flip side of that, I started to screen grab celebrities' photos from Instagram and then take a photo of me and put them next to each other, just sort of straight down the middle. So not sort of delicately cutting them out, just putting one next to the other. And it looked like I was interacting with the celebrity. And that was really fun.
Can you describe like one of them?
The first one I did, the first one I did was Miley Cyrus was eating a churro. So she had this, like, I don't know what a churro is actually made out of. I've never eaten a churro. It's
Is it like a donut?
Oh yeah, it's like a fried bread, isn't it? But it's like a stick.
Yeah. Almost looks like an eclair.
Yeah. So it was like it was sort of coming out of her mouth. So I sort of, in a provocative way, as is sort of Miley Cyrus's way. And I took a photo of me with a carrot, because I didn't have a churro, sort of mimicking her pose, and I flipped it and inverted it, so it looked like her churro and my carrot were sort of stuck together. So it looked like we were sharing a churro in a sort of Lady and the Tramp spaghetti scene scenario. And it only took 5 minutes to sort of make. Very, very lo-fi, and the image is just stuck together. It's just a vertical stuck together thing.
I think that makes it funnier, though. I think if it was perfectly done, it wouldn't be the same. I think.
I mean, the idea of it is more powerful than the technical putting it together. Once I started making these, and I did a lot of them, people started, oh yeah, I've seen this guy does something similar, and they're all very professionally, someone has photoshopped themselves into an image. It's not, I hadn't invented anything. It was just like a fun way of doing it for myself. And I was like, yeah, but that kind of defeats there's a level of it which is funny because it's sort of badly made, and and I quite like that, and I sort of use that quite a lot in my work, which confuses people sometimes. Actually, it's not necessarily about how well made something is. It gets a bit boring when it's very technical. I think anything gets a bit boring when it's very technical. It's not about that. It's about the idea. And for me, it's really important that you, the viewer, when you see my work, you know how it's been made. Like you're in on it. You're in on the trick. You can see, oh, he's just taken a sort of out of focus picture and flipped it over, and like, oh yeah, now I can see it's, it's not important, the technical sort of aspect to it.
And I think maybe it makes creativity seem more reachable for the average person. And because I know when I was, looking at your video, I spent the whole time just giggling. I thought it was hysterical. And like I said, when you sort of show your photographs just sort of chopped down the middle, where the carrot meets the churro, I don't know if I saw that one, but there's a part of it, the most important bit, that is quite well lined up. It was very well lined up, but that's about it. The rest is literally, anyone could do it, but it's having the idea in the first place, isn't it? I think that's where your genius lies, with all those ideas you have. But the point I'm trying to make is I think anyone can be creative. It's just thinking of it in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just that little. That's the exciting bit. It's just the spark. Yeah. It's just the idea. It's not. I mean, once you have that, then yeah, you can refine it and finesse it and all that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of people then get obsessed with that, and then you lose the idea. The idea is the exciting bit, not like, oh, I spent 20 hours photoshopping and airbrushing myself into this picture and matching up the light sources and making the textures all the same. Like, oh, very good if you can do all that, but that's not exciting. The exciting is this
different kind of art, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's a different kind of thing, and it's totally fine. But it's not for me anyway. I think you look at music, you look at film, you look at anything that it's when people get overly technical. For me anyway, that's when I start to lose interest, and it becomes a little bit like you're just showing off how well you can make something. But does it strike a chord? Does it resonate? Is it funny? Is it exciting? That kind of thing.
So how do people react to it? Like you mentioned, like when you're on the subway and you were scared you might get punched. Do people know what you're doing, and how do they react?
I get asked this a lot, like, oh, on the subway when I'm swapping my face out for their face. Do people notice? I haven't really been spotted yet. So I've made a series of videos where I put my face over someone else's face on the subway. And I often post these on my Instagram and Instagram stories. The reason I make those and why I think I'm making those is because we're all on our phones. So the victims, if you will, are ambivalent to what's going on because they're on their phones. So that's why I'm filming them, because they're easy prey, because they're glued to their phones. So generally, in those videos, I only ever make videos of other people on their phones, and then I put my face on it. And for me, the idea is that we're all on our phones. I'm on my phone making this video, sort of having a joke with someone who is also on their phone. So.
Although, didn't you put your head on a baby?
That's true. That is true. That's very well remembered.
That's an exception.
I couldn't resist. That's Well, the problem is when you're sat on the subway in New York. Sometimes, a baby will be pushed into your field of view. You're sat down, and a parent will push the stroller or pram or whatever they're called, and the baby will line up perfectly with just because you're sat down. So it's really difficult to resist filming the baby's face. That does feel a little naughty, but it's really funny. So it's hard to resist.
But when you're drawing the people opposite you, or rather not drawing them, but drawing a little cartoon body and then putting their head on the top, I was just wondering if anybody had ever sort of thought, oh, he's drawing me, and think you're drawing some kind of really serious portrait, and then they come and have a look and just see you've drawn frogs' legs. And
No, that's not happened either. I think another good thing about living in New York is that everyone's a bit weird, so you kind of get left alone, which is really great.
Because I thought you were English. Sorry, I thought you were American.
No,
and you even looked American, if there is such
really?
a... Yeah, because...
You mean I look like a movie star?
That's what she means, yeah.
Tara's been talking about you for so long, as everyone who's listening will know. And I don't know why, but because I think it's just how you are, or you seem. I just thought, oh, he's American. And then when you said you're coming over to the UK, I thought, oh, yeah, he's obviously from New York. Well, you obviously are, but you obviously moved over there, and I was really surprised when I heard your accent. I thought, oh, he's English.
Oh, sorry. Is that disappointing?
No, not at all. But what made you I know I'm sort of straying a little bit, but what made you go to New York?
I'd been visiting New York before I lived there for a while, for work, for exhibitions and events and stuff. And I really always had a really great time there. It's a really great city. And I just thought maybe... I was kind of thinking I should move because with my work, I was based in Nottingham and I was traveling a lot. And I just thought, I could kind of live anywhere. I was traveling places and making work in those places. So I thought, I could live anywhere. Why don't I move somewhere? And I didn't have any sort of responsibilities or reason not to. And it's a bit like being creative. Once you have an idea to do something, And, a moment ago that idea didn't exist, but now it does. So now there's this thing where if you don't do it, you feel a bit disappointed because, you've suddenly had this idea. And I had this idea I could move and live somewhere else. And then every day thereafter, when I hadn't, realized that idea, I felt a bit disappointed in myself. And I kept saying to people, oh, I might move, might live somewhere else. And, a year or two went by and I hadn't done it. And I felt a bit, sort of let myself down a little bit. I thought I'm not exploiting the opportunities I have to the fullest. So then sort of wrote a little short list of places I thought I could live, would like to live. And New York was the top of that list.
Do you think in a way that's helped you along in your career living there? Do you think it would have ended up the same if you?
Well, it's definitely had an impact on me. I mean, you can't live somewhere for 7 odd years and not influence you in a way. But who knows what might have been had I moved somewhere else or stayed where I was. I feel it's helped me a lot. I feel moving, being a foreigner, being an immigrant, living somewhere else is a good thing. And it's good for me to be unfamiliar with my surroundings. It's good for me to see lots of new stuff all the time. I think that's good for my well-being and my creativity. And I think it's good for a city like, New York is so diverse. It's great to be amongst that, It's a real lovely thing to meet people from all around the world, all in one place. So yeah, I think it's been very positive.
Do you create something every single day, or are there days where you simply just don't feel like it?
I think, yeah, I mean, I probably do most days, but there's definitely times where I don't feel like it, or it doesn't occur to me. Sometimes I'm just distracted doing other stuff, and it doesn't occur to me. And I think, like I said before, I think that's fine. Sometimes you need replenishing time, and just, you accumulate ideas and thoughts, sometimes without knowing it, and then they come to a head, and then you make something, and you're like, where did all this come from? And it's because you've been going around museums and reading books and, spending time doing other stuff, and then you have all this material within you for when you want to be creative.
So how would you suggest other people build a creative habit?
Just think if you want to get into a habit forming, start with something simple and easy that you that's not impossible for you to do, and something that you're going to enjoy, and try and do it every day. Set yourself a little task. It could be when you walk to work. Maybe you have to photograph something that you're going to draw on later, or even just photograph something unusual, or photograph something that's red or green or blue, or a letter, or try and photograph words that then you can put all the photographs together and make a sentence. Or set yourself a really simple task and see if that you can go with that. And once you feel comfortable with that, then you can broaden it out a little bit. And I guarantee if you do something like that, whether it's draw someone opposite you or whatever, that you'll get other ideas as you're doing it, and you'll think to yourself, whoa, this is fun. What if I did it this way? Or what if I added this to it? And before you know it, you're off creating and making stuff. But I think everything starts from a very simple what if, or, how many of these can I do? Or a little simple sort of setup. And it sounds cheesy, but that's why I made my book. It's great to create because it's got all those little starting points which I use, and I thought it'd be fun to sort of share them with other people. So if you want it, I would highly recommend grabbing a copy or two of that book and picking something from that and trying to do it. That's why I made that book, actually. So
that book really reminds me of art college and the sort of foundation course. But can you explain maybe a couple of the exercises you've got in there?
Oh man, now, yes. Some of them are very, very simple. Some of them are just at the beginning of the book, it's just about making stuff without a particular goal in mind. So there's a bunch of exercises that just explore the materials. So you get a brightly coloured pen and a dark coloured pen and mash them together, mix them together, scribble with them until the pens run out. Just make something without worrying about what you're making at all. Drawing with your eyes closed, drawing with your weaker hand, drawing while singing, drawing while talking, free-form writing. Just write what happened to you. You're not allowed to stop. You're not allowed to just keep going until you fill the page. Those are the kind of exercises at the very beginning. And what they do is they make you not scared of the blank page. And then you start attacking the blank page because you're trying to make these things very quickly. And it gives you an energy as well, which goes into the other exercises. Some of the later exercises are very goofy, sort of making characters and faces out of boiled eggs. What else is in there? We've touched on some of those before, like the subway drawings are in there. The sort of simple collage techniques are in there, cutting stuff out of magazines and sticking them down, drawing around them, drawing over existing images. Yeah, you're right. Those are very much like exercises you would get on Foundation.
Haven't you got googly eyes in there? Because I know Sandra is a big fan of googly eyes and sticky
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
I do love the googly eyes.
I mean, yeah, they're great for all occasions. I carry googly eyes with me wherever I go.
Have you got some now?
Not in this room, but there are some just next door. I'm scouring the room. I can see stuff in this room with googly eyes, but they're already stuck down on things.
When I was doing a video, I think myself and Tara were making a video a while back, and I'd never made a video before, and I found it really, really hard to talk to my computer. And my face was on the computer as well, and I just found it really off-putting. So I was trying to work out a way I could kind of feel like I wasn't just talking to my own face, and I stuck a pair of googly eyes, one either side of the little camera hole, and I just found that so much easier because my computer just turned into this little character. Yeah, so I get it. I get the whole googly eye thing.
Yeah, and it's I'm a big fan of sort of low effort, high yield sort of work. So adding two eyes to something and it turns it into a character is really satisfying. You get a big smile from very low effort. So actually, I have on my phone. It has like a little camera on the front, which is a black dot. So I have a little googly eye next to that. So it kind of looks like two eyes, and then on my phone there's a little line underneath that. It looks like a mouth with a beauty spot next to it. So so yeah, you can turn anything into anything. That's the amazing thing. And once you sort of unlock this in your mind, the more you do this, the more opportunities for it you see. It feels a bit like having a superpower. You walk around thinking, I can manipulate anything I see into a face, into a character, into something. It doesn't always have to be a character, of course, but that's stuff I like. But yeah, you feel you have the ability to manipulate the world around you, and that's what creativity is, I think. That's why it's so intoxicating and so wonderful.
You've worked for some really big brands, haven't you, like Apple? So how do you balance doing work that excites you like that and making a living?
Well, I'm lucky that sometimes those things overlap. So, working for Apple is earning a living, but it's also really exciting because they were very open to what I wanted to make, and they were very accepting of letting me create what I wanted to make. So that's not always the case with commercial jobs. Sometimes it's much more prescribed, and I try not to do those kind of jobs so much because they're not very fun. I try and let the fun dictate what it is, and if I get paid for it, then that's amazing. But if I don't, then it's still a lot of fun, and I'm making something that I want to make and learning from that experience. So it's sort of, payment is always a bonus, but practicalities come into play, and sometimes you do stuff that's less fun, but it does pay you, and you got to pay your rent. And living in New York is very expensive, so Sometimes you have to make those compromises. There's always kind of compromises with whatever you do, and you have to just weigh up whether they're ones you want to take or not. And of course, it's a lucky thing to be in a situation where you can even think like that. And it wasn't always the case. I did lots of work early on in my career just to get by.
What did you do for Apple?
They've got these really beautiful video walls in some of their stores, in some of their Apple churches, and they asked if I wanted to make a big sort of animated mural for the wall, and I said yes, I do want to make a big animated mural for your wall. And they said, all right, go and make one, and I did, and there was no sketches and no can you draw an Apple computer in the middle, or can you put a logo on there? None of that stuff, which was really great. Often when you do work for a company, they often make out that they want you to do your thing and be creative. And then midway through the process, they say, oh, we've had some feedback, and can you put our logo in there? Can you draw our product range in there or stuff? And who wants to do that? That's not really very interesting for me. So hats off to Apple. They were very open, and it was a really wonderful project. And to see the work on those big screens was fantastic. They're really beautiful. So that was, a privilege for me, and very exciting when it was revealed, when I went to see it in the store for the first time.
So do you ever hide little elements that mean something to you in your murals?
I've been tempted to in the past, probably for naughty reasons, to hide something. But not really. I think for my own work, yeah, it's littered with stuff like that. And for commercial stuff, sort of. I mean, sometimes I draw stuff and I only realise what it is later on, which is a funny thing. But I think it's totally fine. You draw all day long, or you're making stuff all the time. You can't always keep tabs on what everything is. And sometimes someone will come along and look at my work and say, is that so-and-so? Or who does that represent? What does that represent? And then you take a moment and you contemplate what it is. And you think, oh yeah, maybe it is this thing. Maybe that does mean something to me. And you didn't realize you put it in, but there it is. I was looking at a drawing I made a few days ago. I was looking at a drawing I made a year ago with a friend, and they were saying, is that you? Is that your brother? Is that so-and-so? And they weren't really meant to be those people, but they kind of really do look like them. So I think, you don't always have to worry about what it is you're making and what everything means and what everything represents and stuff. Some of that stuff comes later. You're a conduit to the work. It's coming through you, and you're not always in control. And you shouldn't. I think it stifles it a little bit. You contemplate and worry about every little line, every little thing. Sometimes
maybe it's better on a subconscious level.
Yeah, definitely. You're just sort of, especially in the way that I work, in a very sort of loose and spontaneous way. That's part of the nature of it. And then you come back to it and you realise everything looks like your mother.
That's a whole therapy session, isn't it?
So I can't really imagine it, but have you ever had a creative block? And if you have, how have you got over it?
Definitely had times where it's like, oh, what should I do for this? I think the problem sometimes is you have too many options or too much choice. If you look at that Apple example, you could think like, oh, they're allowing me to do anything. Goodness, what am I going to do? So I have a block sometimes a bit like that, where I'm not sure what to do, because it seems like you could do anything, and that's a bit overwhelming. That's a bit too much for my brain to cope with. And in those situations, what I do is I go to my sketchbooks. And to anyone listening to this, I would say if you take away anything from this conversation, is to keep a sketchbook, to draw in it, not to worry about what you're drawing. If you don't like it, turn the page, do another drawing, sketch, draw, scribble, whatever it might be, write ideas down, and leave it in there. And then when you have one of these blocks, whether it's you don't know what to draw or it's too many options, go to your sketchbook. That's what I do. And I flick through the pages, and I have hundreds of these sketchbooks because I keep them safe over the years. And you can dip in and out of them, and you'll get ideas. You'll be like, oh yeah, I remember I went through a phase drawing these things. Maybe I'll do that, or this would be perfect for that project. And it could be something that you drew years ago, and you're only using it now. So I'd say that's what I do. As I return back to my sketches and loose ideas, and I rummage around, and I find something that I've forgotten about, and then I take that as a starting point. And I find it really, really helpful.
Quickly going back to what you were saying about it can be overwhelming to have too much choice. At this moment, I totally relate to that. And it's just given me an aha moment of why I'm actually on a commission at the moment. And it's one commission where the couple just said, we don't care what you do as long as it's bright turquoise.
Right.
It's the hardest commission I think I've ever done, because I'm totally blocked. And yet if somebody actually says, right, well, we want this subject, but you can put your own spin on it, that's great. But yeah, I can totally get that whole way too much,
too many options.
Many options. Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe you've just hit the nail on the head, and maybe that's what is going on with me at the moment. So thanks for that.
Glad I can be of help.
I want to ask you if there are any particular artists out there that have inspired you along the way, because I'm sure you're inspiring so many people. So I was wondering who you look to.
I don't really have sort of, this is my favorite artist, and I think I cherry pick sort of little bits from artists and stuff along the way, stuff that they do that I really like. I think I grew up with just all the classic artists that you get introduced to early on in art school and stuff, all the Picasso and Miro and people like that, and then Kandinsky. I really, really enjoyed their works when I was younger, and then as I got a little bit further through school and stuff, you discover pop art and things, and I really like the work of Klaus Oldenburg, people like that, I guess, and then contemporary artists, I like David Shrigley, and I like Martin Creed and Keith Tyson, and there's just lots of people, really, lots of artists. There's so much good stuff out there. I don't know. My mind always goes a bit blank when it's sort of reeling off lists of artists. But I don't have one artist that I love and worship, and then I want it to be like. I think going back to the style thing, that can be a little bit dangerous. That you're just trying to emulate one thing. There's good stuff to learn from every artist, I think, and then you just take it and reapply it to what you're into and what who you are and what it is you're making.
I always wondered if you like Keith Haring, because he did that really lovely sort of doodle characters.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I didn't really like Keith Haring growing up. I didn't know very much about him. I only saw his work on pencil cases and sort of sweatshirts and things. So I didn't really know much about his work other than those sort of stick figures that he drew. The sort of dancing characters.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like them. This was in the 80s and early 90s. It seemed a little bit cheesy. And then since living in New York, maybe about 6 years ago, there was a big Keith Haring show at the Brooklyn Museum. And I went to see it, and then I finally got to see a lot of his drawings and murals in the flesh. And I really liked them. I really thought they were fantastic. And there was lots of videos of him painting. And I thought he was really great. And I thought we could have been friends if we'd existed around the same time. Because there was lots of, not just the aesthetics of his work are great, but I don't totally love, but I do think is super cool. But his attitude to how he creates and paints and works in a very intuitive way. I thought he was saying lots of things that I could relate to. I was sort of silently nodding to myself as I walked around the exhibition, and I could totally see how he'd made lots of things, because it was a very similar way to how I feel I work. So it was really nice to connect to an artist being shown in a prestigious museum like that and feel an affinity with them. And normally when I walk around galleries and museums, I might see lots of things I'm into and enjoy, but I always feel like I've been cut from a different cloth, that I'm not really an artist like these people are artists, even though I like a lot of what they're doing, and I can take little bits of inspiration from them. When I went to the Keith Haring show, I thought, wow, it's, I could feel like we're on the same wavelength. Not always feel like that. So I'm a big fan now, but I wasn't growing up at all. But it's only because I never really saw his real work, I think. I didn't really have a proper understanding about how he created his works. I just saw the end product, and I think for him, definitely the process is part of it.
So what's been the highlight of your creative journey so far?
Just having a creative journey, I would say. I don't know if there's any one highlight. I think it's just remarkable and fantastic to I'm quite old now. Actually, today's my birthday.
Young. Oh, happy birthday!
Thanks. I'm one day. I'm one notch.
What, today?
Today, right now. So I'm one bit older than I was a few hours ago. I've been doing this like nearly 20 years. So the fact that I've been doing it nearly 20 years is kind of remarkable to me. And when I speak to some of my peers, you realise what a thing that is. It's very tough to be a full-time artist, especially when you're doing goofy little drawings and stuff that I'm doing. So just the longevity of my career is a constant source of amazement to me, and I'm sure others.
So is that what's brought you back to the UK then? Your birthday? Are you seeing people?
Not necessarily. Well, actually, it was to escape the heat in New York, and then exactly. What an own goal that's turned out to be. Actually, no, it's been a lot more pleasant over here. In New York, it's the heat is one thing, but the humidity is a lot higher. So it's like you're walking around in a goldfish bowl.
Whereabouts in the UK are you?
I am in Peckham right now.
Oh, Peckham.
Yeah, I'm staying at my brother's flat here in.
You can expect Tara to be sitting outside your front door.
I'm not
in about an hour.
So, but yeah, I'm going to travel around the UK a little bit. I'm just here for a holiday, actually. Yeah, see friends and family, and escape the heat of New York.
And what are your birthday plans then?
I don't have any, but I don't know. Got no idea, actually. We'll see what happens.
So if you were to give some advice to someone who really wants to be creative but just doesn't know how or where to start, what advice would you give them?
Well, obviously, buy one of my books. It's Great to Create. It's a good starting point.
And that's on Amazon.
It is.
Skillshare.
I've just put it in my basket.
Oh, bless you. Thanks. I'll just wait until you check out, and then I'll continue. No. Sorry. Advice for people who want to be creative. Well, like we were saying before, just start simple. Grab a pencil and a piece of paper, something everyone's got access to, and just start drawing. Just make some shapes, make some scribbles. Go and see some art. Go and go to a gallery or a museum. See something and ask yourself what it is that you like about what you've seen, and take that inspiration and see if you can make your version of it. Make a lo-fi version of an old master. Try and do it with a biro or a crayon, or do something like that. Just whatever it might be. Just start making something. You don't have to show anyone. You don't have to do anything with it. And the important thing is to keep going. And that you might be mortified by your early creations, but that's okay. We all feel like that. And just keep going. See where it takes you.
Because your book is also very similar, your Skillshare course, isn't it?
Yeah,
Churro.
I've got two Skillshares, and the second one, the most recent one, is definitely a sort of extension of the It's Great to Create book, where there's six sort of prompts or exercises to kickstart your creativity. I think that's what we call it. So
So it is the great to create 101 fun creative exercises for everyone,
Yep.
right? Yeah, because next to it, in brackets, it's confusing because it says colouring books. It's not a colouring book,
it's not a colouring book. I don't know. It's out on Amazon. Maybe that's someone has mislisted it. I have made a colouring in book and a sort of doodling book called The Daily Doodle, but those are separate books. But yeah, if you write my name and in Google and write books or something, it should come up.
I just want to ask a very serious question. Who moves the puppet and stuff on your Skillshare?
Well, that is a very good question, and I'm glad you've asked that, because that puppet is beautifully made, and it's by a lady called the Felt Mistress. And her name is Louise, and she has made a multitude of characters for me out of felt. And she is brilliant. She's really, really talented. And she made Bergsy. So if anyone visits my Skillshare class, they will see I'm not alone presenting that class. I have a sidekick, and his name is Bergsy, and he is a very naughty burger.
You must have a sidekick that you take around with you. You know, those we were talking about the posters where you sort of like pretend that the weapon is sort of shooting
yes.
you.
Well, I have a friend or if I'm with someone, I get them to take the photo. So it's
And you've got tomato ketchup in your
Well,
in your
I do that digitally afterwards. I did think about it.
do you? Oh, I wondered how you did that.
It's very, very lo-fi. I take a photo and I put it on the computer and I use Photoshop and I select red and I scribble over my face, and there you go. I didn't want it to be too gruesome. There was an early version where I got my friend Daniel, who's very good at computers, and I said, can you make it look like I've been shot? And he did, and it was really graphic and horrible, and I was like, it's too much. So I had to say no.
So what are your plans for the future?
I'm going to hopefully make more books. I've been making storybooks as well as sort of creativity books. So I'm meant to be making some more picture books. So I've been working on those. I want to do more animation. So it's a lot slower process because it involves more work. But I would like to do more animated work and just more of the same, more of what I've been doing, more live drawing, more projections, more installations, more taking the work off the page or off the wall and making it an experience or making it something a little unusual that people can engage with. But ultimately, what it comes down to is just like sharing the work, sharing the stories behind the work with people, and just finding different novel, exciting ways to do that.
When I watched your video, obviously you were doing a talk, weren't you, to a whole audience full of people with just you and your computer. That must be really... Do you do those often? Because that must be terrifying, surely. Standing on a stage and just... Because presumably you haven't got a script, obviously, have you?
It's improvised. That's the way I live my life, is improvising everything. I really enjoy doing that. It is a little terrifying, but that's why it's fun. I don't really like roller coasters. People say those are terrifying but fun. But for me, being on stage is my equivalent of that kind of thing. It's a little, hair-raising, but it's exhilarating, and it's really great to connect with a big group of people and sharing ideas and making them laugh. And it's really wonderful afterwards. People come up to you and say, you've inspired me, and I want to draw, or I want to do this, and you've given me these ideas. People are buzzing. That's wonderful to be part of that. And it's a two-way thing. I feel really inspired and excited after that as well. So yes, it's really good fun. I do it once. I do it a few times a year. I do it whenever people ask me. So I don't do it all the time, but once in a while, I I do it. And it's good. It's good.
Yeah. I'd say when I was watching, because you're on it's on YouTube, isn't it, Tara? I think we're going to have to put a link to that on the bottom of the show notes.
Various talks people share online. Yeah.
But I think as well why people find you so inspiring, especially people who don't think they can be creative. I think everyone thinks to be a creative you've got to be able to draw, but actually you give people so many other ways of being creative where you don't have to be able to draw at all. You just have to be able to have an idea and a little creative spark. So I think that's probably where you're just gold, really, that you can inspire anybody.
Thanks.
So where can, apart from your YouTube channel and Skillshare, where can people find out more about you? You've got an amazing Instagram page. I know that because I follow that now.
Yeah, I mean, I post a lot of stuff on Instagram and on Instagram stories, and I use Instagram stories as a sort of experimental space to share digital things. So I'm always posting stuff on there. It could be drawings, could be music, could be little videos, little animations, stuff like that. So definitely check that out if you want to see more of my stuff. I don't know how familiar people are with Instagram TV. It's a little offshoot of Instagram. I started making sort of short form episodes on there. So if you're feeling brave and want to investigate Instagram TV, I've got a couple of episodes which you can see you can see my studio in New York, and you can see me making stuff and painting stuff and creating on there. And I'm going to continue to make episodes for that. My website, which is I should say all these things are my name. So on Instagram it's just Jon Burgerman, @Jon Burgerman, and my website is just my name, jonburgerman.com. You can see some of my projects on there and some of my older projects. We mentioned the books. What else? I think that's kind of it. I don't know. There's probably there's burgerplex.com, the online.
And Burger, can you spell Burgerman just so everyone knows?
Jon, Jon, no H. Don't put an H in there. You may be tempted. Don't do it. You don't need it. And then Burgerman is as it sounds, burger, BURGER, and then man, MAN. So Jon Burgerman. So .com for my website, @Jon Burgerman for Instagram. There's Jon Burgerman on YouTube, Jon Burgerman on Facebook. There's all Twitter. I don't know. You'll be sick of me.
So just basically type Jon Burgerman into Google, and he'll come up.
That stuff. It's too much. Just pick one or two. That's all you need. And then if you and on Instagram and on my website and stuff, if I'm doing live events and projects that you can come to, I'll probably be promoting them on there. So always keep an eye out, because I think doing the talks and having the exhibitions, those are the really fun things. So yeah.
Are you doing anything live while you're in UK?
No, this is a really rare time. I've come to the UK without any projects, and a bunch of people have asked me, which is really flattering. But no, I'm just here existing, relaxing, eating some chips, hopefully.
Well, thanks for spending time with us on your birthday of all days. We had no idea.
Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me.
No, well, that was inevitable, to be honest. I think, how many podcasts have we on now? But it's been every single episode. The name has come up. So, yeah, you could run, but you could never hide.
No. Thank you very much.
Thanks
you're very
much,
welcome.
Jon.
Very nice chatting to you both. All right, see you later.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, perhaps you'd like to share it and leave a review for us on iTunes. Back soon.